Recording in progress.
Welcome, everybody. The time is now 3:30, and I hereby call the March 19th, 2024 meeting of the St. Joseph County Area Plan Commission to order. This meeting is being held in person and virtually on the fourth floor of the council chambers of the County City Building. We will first ask for any public comment from the chambers and then from the members in public attending remotely. For public comment from those attending remotely, please use the raise hand function and/or message the host in the chat. Please clearly state your name and address for the record. We ask that board members state their name when making a motion and a second. At this time, please silence your cell phones so they do not disturb the meeting. I have a note that the county commissioners has a meeting, that they moved their meeting up to 5 o'clock. So if for whatever reason this meeting goes to 4:45, we will have to reconvene at the 7th floor and move for the county commissioners meeting if it gets to that point. I will make an announcement at that time. Also, I'd like to welcome Dean Rao is one of our new members. He's on the advisory council for town affairs of Lakeville. That is new, so welcome, Dean. Also, for many of you, we lost one of our members, longtime members, just this past few weeks. Bob Hawley was a long time. I'd like to read a few things about Bob real quick. Bob passed away a few weeks ago, as I mentioned. He was appointed to the St. Joseph County Area Plan Commission back in 1999. He's also on the Area Board of Zoning Appeals since 2005 and served on both commissions until he passed away this past month. In recognition of his many years of dedicated service to St. Joseph County, commissioners have awarded him a key to the county. Bob began his 50-year tenure in the real estate industry back in 1974 with Anchor Sales, and then moving on to Century 21 Jim Dunphy Real Estates. And the past 12 and a half years, he was worked as a new member agent, mentor, and coach for Cressy and Everett. And he was a mentor to dozens of realtors that went on to have successful careers on their own. In addition, Bob served as an active member of the Home Builder Association of St. Joseph Valley for more than 50 years, where he held several positions, including president back in 1979, and was a longtime standing board member. He was also one of the founders of the Penn High School Building Trades program that began back in 1968. He served as a past president, secretary, and longtime board member. In May of 2023, the first ever Bob Hawley Legacy Scholarship was awarded to the student pursuing a career in the building trades field and dedication for his longtime passion for helping the next generation get into this industry. I've known Bob personally and his family my whole life. He was one of those guys that always had a smile on his face and was always looking at all the positives in every aspect that he could. So he's going to be greatly missed. At this time, I'd like to have a moment of silence. Thank you. With that, can we please have the roll call? Shelley?
Mr. Devon,
Here?
Ms. Hannon,
Here.
Mr. England,
Here.
Mr. Rao,
Here.
Mr. Matsett,
Here.
Dr. Thacker,
Here.
Mr. Tavernier.
Here.
We have 5 board members present, 2 on Zoom.
Thank you, Shelley. As Shelley mentioned, we are a 9-member commission. We have 5 members present and in person and 2 members attending virtually. If any petitioner would prefer to have their petition heard with more members present, they may ask staff to have their item tabled for future meeting when more members might be present. With that, may we have the reading for the first petition, please?
Rezoning a proposed ordinance of St. Joe Farm Limited Liability Company to zone from A Agricultural District in PUD Plan Unit Development District to I Industrial District. Property located at the 180 plus or minus acre portion of 12,000 Cleveland Road to the west of Bittersweet Road, and the 375 plus or minus acre parcel west of and abutting 12,000 Cleveland Road, 12,501 Cleveland Road, and the 17 plus or minus acre and 39 plus or minus acre parcels east and abutting 12,501 Cleveland Road, and a portion of 52,682 Current Road, and a portion of the 180 plus or minus parcel abutting 52,682 Current Road to the north, south, and east. St. Joe County, APC application number 3035-24.
This is Sean Klein, Area Plan Commission staff. This is a petition to rezone the area outlined on the screen from A agricultural district and a small strip of what is the planned unit development to I industrial district. The property is west of Bittersweet, just to the east of the railroad tracks on both sides of Cleveland Road. Currently on site is a cultivated farm field. Again, this will take in a portion of the St. Joe Farms PUD. However, all of the land uses and buildings related to that PUD are not subject to this rezoning, and those will be placed on their own parcel should the rezoning be successful. When you look to the north across the toll road, you'll find residential subdivisions zoned R single family, as well as cultivated field zoned R single family, and some undeveloped parcels zoned R single family. Looking to the east across Bittersweet Road, there's a solar farm that's owned by Indiana Michigan Power, and as well as more farm field that's owned by the petitioner, both zoned A agricultural district. To the south are farm parcels and two single-family homes. These single-family homes are approximately 850 feet to the south of the subject property with frontage on Douglas Road. All of this to the south is zoned A agricultural district. And then to the west, immediately to the west again, is the St. Joe Farms Planned Unit Development, which is also owned by this petitioner. Further to the west across Current Road, there are 3 cultivated parcels zoned A agricultural district. One of those does appear to contain a single-family home. And then once you're south of Cleveland, immediately west of the railroad track, there is a self-storage unit zoned C commercial. This is the property as viewed from Current Road looking east. And then from the northeast corner of Cleveland and Current looking to the northeast. This is looking south across Cleveland Road from that aforementioned corner. This is the property as viewed from Bittersweet near the toll road looking southwest. Property south of Cleveland as viewed from Cleveland looking south. Property viewed from Bittersweet looking west. And then this is the farm and the home to the west of Current that I alluded to. The site plan provided by the petitioner, it does not show the location or the specific type of proposed development, but per the application, the intended use is that of a business tech campus. The development would need to comply with all of the development standards of the I Industrial District, as well as state and local regulations related to flood hazards, which we'll get to in a moment. In terms of transportation and traffic, the site is proposed to predominantly access Cleveland Road. The number and locations of these future access are subject to county engineer approval. The current portion of Cleveland Road found here is a 2-lane county road with average daily traffic count of over 12,000 vehicles. In terms of utilities, industrial development on this site would require the extension of sewer and water services from the city of Mishawaka. There is a study underway currently looking into that extension. The current plan, or the anticipated sewer extension, would be to a service area between Capitol Avenue to the west, Buckeye Road to the east, the Toll Road to the north, and Douglas Road to the south. And then water would be provided from the new treatment plant on Veterans Parkway. Turning to the state law criteria, staff finds that this rezoning would advance several listed goals of the 2002 comprehensive plan, including Goal 2 Objective A, to ensure that there are areas available for future industrial development. More specifically, Policy 6, which states that industrial uses shall have access to municipal water, wastewater, and sanitation services, as well as Policy 7, which directs light industrial uses to be located within 1 mile of a limited access highway interchange, which is the case here with Capitol and the Toll Road. It would also serve a Goal 2 Objective B, which is locate employment uses in such a manner that conflicts with residential land uses are minimized. And there again, more specifically, Policy 3 under that objective, which states that truck and automobile traffic generated by employment uses should not travel through residential areas. Additionally, this area is within the planning area of the 2003 Capitol Avenue Land Use Plan. And per that land use plan, the area of the rezoning north of Cleveland Road is highlighted for industrial uses through master planned corporate parks. And the proposed business tech park does seem to be consistent with that anticipated future use. The area south of Cleveland, more along the Jude Creek and the associated floodplains, it does have that shown as recreational open space, really in recognition of the difficulty, if not inability, to develop in that area given the floodplain. Turning to current conditions and character, as I mentioned, it's currently a cultivated farm field. However, there has been extensive development both to the north and the residential subdivisions there, as well as to the south. And Mishawaka has expanded eastward such that there is considerable traffic on the county arterials that provide access between the north and the south, as well as from Elkhart to Mishawaka and to Capitol Avenue, which provides access to the toll road and to US 20. Such that the agricultural value of this immediate Harris Township agricultural district has likely been diminished just due to the extensive non-farm traffic in the area. Additionally, as I mentioned, Jude Creek does flow through the portion of the property to the south of Cleveland Road. There's also a portion of the Scamhorn Ditch. There will be a 75-foot ditch easement enforced from the top of the banks of both these bodies of water in which no structure can be constructed. Additionally, the Jude Creek, given its unique environmental and economic significance, there is a board called the Jude Creek Task Force, which is an advisory board of the Drainage Board, and they will be reviewing any development that could potentially have an adverse impact on this creek and will help to guide that development. There are large portions of both FEMA and IDEM recognized special flood hazard areas along the creek as well. Development within the flood hazard areas is not anticipated. Any construction within the flood fringe would need to comply with local floodplain regulations and is subject to approval of the county floodplain administrator. And any construction within the floodway, which is extremely unlikely, would require Indiana DNR approval. Turning to the most desirable use, we find that based on the availability of sewer and water service, proximity to major arterial roads, including the Indiana Toll Road, and the extremely sparse nearby residential uses, industrial development is the most desirable use for this property. Similarly, for conservation of property values, All residential uses appear to be distanced from the developable portion of the site, such that industrial development should have no significant impact on the ongoing residential value of these properties, and industrial development would not adversely impact the solar power generating facility or agricultural uses in the area. Finally, we find that it is responsible growth and development to allow industrial development in an area that is served by municipal sewer and water and major street thoroughfares. The City of Mishawaka and St. Joseph County are both in agreement that obviously utilities will need to be provided to this site prior to any development, and the county and the city are continuing to work to determine growth boundaries and potential annexation along the Capitol Avenue corridor as this growth and development potentially occurs. Staff recommends that the rezoning be sent to the county council with a favorable recommendation. We find that given the impracticality of construction within the floodplain area south of Cleveland, that most of the development will be north of Cleveland, and therefore it will be consistent with what was shown on the Capitol Avenue land use plan with some form of open space to the south, and then the master plan corporate park to the north. Other than that, I'm happy to answer any questions. Oh, I apologize. We did receive one letter in remonstrance. They cited a concern with the rezoning due to the high volume of traffic in the area.
Agree.
Thank you, Sean. Any questions by the commission at this time?
I had one. On this map, the hashed lines indicate planned unit development, and that's the whole area under consideration, right?
No, that's just the proposed rezoning. The hatched area is where there's no green underlying the hatch. That is really confusing on that map, I apologize. So that's mainly around those older agricultural buildings is where the planned unit development takes place.
Okay.
Any other questions at this time? If not, can we have the presentation by the petitioner, please?
Thank you. Mike Danch from Danch, Harn and Associates, 1643 Commerce Drive here in South Bend, representing the petitioners. As the staff had done, they'd done an excellent job on explaining exactly what's being requested here. As part of the rezoning, this is St. Joe Farms. It's about 914 acres plus or minus on either side of Cleveland Road. It runs between Current Road on the west and Bittersweet on the east. And as the staff had mentioned, a portion of the site is bisected by Judy Creek that runs kind of on that south side of the property. What we're asking to do is to take this property and rezone it to the industrial classification under the county for a business tech campus development. And as part of that, the contingent purchaser would like to develop this per the industrial guidelines for the county. As the staff had mentioned, most of the development will most likely occur on the north side of Cleveland Road. There may be a portion on the south side of Cleveland that would allow for some of that campus development. Because of the sensitive nature of Judy Creek, all development would be kept outside of that particular corridor. We have done site plans before and development before along Judy Creek. We're familiar with the restrictions that apply to that, so any kind of development that would occur on this campus would also have to be approved by the Judy Creek Task Force, and they look very seriously at any development that occurs along the creek to make sure that the water quality is maintained and the type of development that would happen here. So that is very important. As the staff had also mentioned, any kind of access points on to the arterials there. Cleveland Road in this particular case is an arterial. Bittersweet Road's an arterial. Current Road is just a local street, but any kind of development that would be done, the access points would have to be approved by Sky Meadows or County Engineering. That would be done as part of a final site plan development. And they take a look at that, they look at the amount of impact that occurs along the arterials, whether it's Cleveland, Bittersweet, or Current, and then they would make a decision of the type of improvements that would also be needed to Cleveland Road or any of the arterials. As the staff had mentioned, right now, there's a average daily count on Cleveland Road of over 12,000 cars. And that's mainly the traffic that runs between South Bend, Mishawaka, and over to Elkhart. So any kind of development would take into account, I'm going to most likely say that my typical way when we do site plan development is that if there are access points there, most likely the county would require a deacceleration lane, and that would allow traffic to get off the main lane and then turn into this development so that there are not any traffic conflict points. So that would be one thing that would be taken a look at. The other thing that we would look at from this standpoint would be drainage. So any kind of drainage that would be developed by the campus, that has to be handled per the county requirements, and the county requirements right now are mainly 5.6-inch rainfall per 24-hour period of time. Those have to be held on site. So as part of the campus development, any kind of detail, it would have to show where that surface runoff would be held on the site itself, so that that can't go into Judy Creek directly. Again, that water quality issue is very important. So it has to be held in either retention ponds or other types of subsurface drainage. And in particular cases out here, most likely that would be probably retention areas. There may be some portions of the site where the campus development could occur where we have sandier soils and we could use subsurface drainage, which would be a chamber system instead, but those would be limited to certain portions of the site. So we would take a look at that as well. As I had mentioned, we will work around Judy Creek. The campus development would show most likely open space areas along the creek itself and those areas where the floodplain potentially could be an issue for any kind of on-site development. You're not allowed to actually do any development in what's called a floodway zone, which is along Judy Creek. You have to basically stay outside of that area with any kind of structures or any kind of site developments. With the floodplain itself, if it's just a floodplain, you still have to have approvals. But what you usually do in those particular areas is that if you did have a structure or something in those have to be 2 foot above the minimum base elevation for any floodplain that would be there. Most likely, the development itself is going to stay outside of those particular corridors, and that would end up being open space for the campus location. As far as any kind of landscaping, screening, and development, that would be part of the industrial guidelines for the county. So when there is a final site plan that gets submitted, those would have to be all maintained, and those would be checked by the staff and all the agencies as well. So there'll be several agencies looking at this particular one. If there's anything that deals anywhere close, again, to where Judy Creek is, the site plans would also be reviewed by the Judy Creek Task Force for approvals. If we don't have their approvals, they would have to go back and either do the redesign or make sure that we meet the restrictions that apply to Judy Creek to make sure that there is no impact with that watershed area. We have had discussions, as the staff had mentioned, with the city of Mishawaka for development like this. The water and sewer would be extended to the site from the city of Mishawaka. It doesn't mean that this would be annexed into the city of Mishawaka right now. There's only one point of contiguity with Mishawaka by state law. Nothing could be annexed for this particular development at this time. So what would end up happening is this would be out in the county. It would fall under all the county guidelines and all the jurisdictions for that. But there would be water and sewer run to this particular site to service with sanitary sewer and water. There would have to be an agreement with, obviously, the developer for the payment and for the engineering for that infrastructure improvements. There also has to be approval by the county, the water and sewer district, to be allowed to run municipal lines in county right-of-ways to get it to this particular site. That's usually not an issue with the water and sewer district, but that's just another step that has to go through. They have to review anything that's for municipal lines that are in public right-of-ways that would come into the county outside of a municipal district. As the staff had mentioned, this is a location that bodes well for this type of campus development. It is located along arterials, and the good thing here is also that it has direct access to Capitol Avenue and the toll road as well. The other issue is that with the toll road that is basically creating our north line for development, that makes a nice buffer zone of over 300 feet between us and any more of the residential development in the county that's happening to the north of the toll road site itself. There are a couple of maybe farmsteads that would be across from what we're doing, but we'll certainly meet any kind of screening and anything else that the county decides on these particular issues. Again, most of the development's going to maintain on the middle portions of the property. What we would ask for, hopefully, is approval of our request to rezone this to industrial. If you have any questions for me, I'd be glad to answer them.
So I've got some questions. So I think it's interesting that Mishawaka is going to extend city water and sewer, and they can't even annex it in. So that I find interesting. But listen, I've lived in this area for a really long time, and I know that there's absolutely nothing that we can do about the trains, right? But the turn lanes on Capitol are way too short for the amount of traffic that Capitol and Cleveland see when there's a train that's blocking Cleveland, Douglas, and Anderson, right? And there's been countless times where I've turned out of my subdivision and there's been traffic been backed up due to a train or due to just congestion from school buses or whatever it may be, down Day, crossing over, or I'm sorry, down Douglas and Bittersweet, down past the Bittersweet and Day stop sign, right?
Yeah.
Cleveland roundabout really helped a lot, but it did absolutely nothing for the trains that stopped there. And trains stop more frequently on Cleveland than what they were originally supposed to. I know that there's gonna be a study done, and I know that I'm asking you for something that you can't give me right now, right? But I'm assuming that we're about to hear a lot of concerns about traffic in the public portion. And I just don't know how you're gonna curb that issue, right? Acceleration and deceleration lanes are gonna be great, but it's still not going to do anything for that roundabout, for the Douglas Road issue. And what's your plan? I mean, traffic is gonna be your biggest issue out there, right? It's a great location. And I've lived there for the last 8 or 10 years, right? And I've been waiting for this to be developed into something. I knew something was coming, but the traffic is incredible out there.
Yeah. No, there, as you had mentioned, there'll be basically an impact study as requested by the county or even the city of Mishawaka to take a look and see what's going to happen there. There's no real answers that you're going to take care of every possible issue, like you just said with the railroad. That's kind of the one variable that's out there that we don't have a lot of control over. Unless the state or the county come up with an idea to do a bridge there, which is usually between $30 to $50 million. And they don't do those unless there's a reason to do those. And so they don't go out and build those overpasses just for the heck of it. So if what you're saying is that if things start to develop, then that may be a big enough issue where somebody starts looking at that. But we will still have to take a look at it, work with Sky, County Engineering, and most likely with Chris Jamros over at the City of Mishawaka to make sure that we're doing what's needed for the traffic. Not everything is going to be perfect, I can tell you that. And depending on what they put in this campus development, this may not all have a high traffic impact that you see in a lot of other campus-type developments. It is also going to be potentially the users that would be in there. Some of the users may not have a high turnover rate for cars entering and exiting the site.
How many acres is this initial development?
The amount that they're purchasing is right around 914. But again, when you take into account the portion where Judy Creek is and that kind of that open space area in there, you're probably taking out maybe 100, 150 acres plus or minus. So when you start taking that out, you can see that the development's going to have a lot of open space to it, just based on those restrictions that you have with Judy Creek and where that floodplain area is.
You don't think that there's gonna be any property value impact to the subdivisions north and south?
No, I mean, from the north on the other side of the toll road, we actually did the subdivision that's on the north side of the toll road. That particular subdivision probably would have hardly any impact. The toll road actually would have more impact with that residential development than a campus business tech park that would be here. Because that was one of our issues when we were actually doing that subdivision, that we would either have an issue because of the toll road, and amazingly, people wanted to build up there, and they're filling up sections 1, 2, and we're actually working on section 3 right now. That doesn't seem to be a huge issue with residential development.
So this is probably more of a question for Bill, but is this something to where that will kickstart the toll road to address their toll situation and their toll booth right there and expand it at that Capitol entrance?
That I don't have an answer to. I didn't know that there was an issue about that part of it, but
Okay.
again, everybody takes a look at what happens as the development occurs. And if there's going to be a bigger impact where they think they start needing to do something, then they start doing their little studies, and then they'll take care of that part of it.
Good.
Did I complain enough?
I'm assuming,
Yeah.
just from what I heard, it sounds like there's already an intended user. It's not, this isn't like on speculation, they're gonna develop this and hope that, but you already have an intended, user for this.
Yeah, there is one that potentially is very interested in the site. I can't say who it is, but they're very interested. And that's why I said that we worked with the staff for the district that we thought would fit best for what was gonna go there. And again, I don't want the commission to get an impression that this is gonna be high traffic, where there's gonna be cars coming in and going out, and there's gonna be all kinds of conflicts. That's not necessarily the case.
Any other questions by the commission before we open it up? Okay, thanks,
Okay.
Mike.
Thank you.
We'll now open this up to the public. First, we will start with anybody wishing to speak in favor of this petition in person. You will have 5 minutes to speak. That will start once you give your name and address. So, is there anybody in person wishing to speak in favor of this petition? Please come forward and state your name and address.
Good afternoon, Bill Shalio, Economic Development Director for St. Joseph County, part of Department of Infrastructure Planning and Growth with offices on the 7th and 11th floor. Here today to support this rezoning request. Over the last couple of years, we've spent a lot of time working with City of Mishawaka and some other stakeholders in this Capitol Avenue corridor, looking at opportunities to extend utilities to this corridor. Mainly sewer has been the main piece, extending sewer from where it ends at Jefferson up into this area to create a opportunity to provide sewer service for this area. Also working with the city to extend water either along Douglas or Cleveland East out of their new water treatment plant that opens next week. And then also looking at other roadway and corridor improvements. Redevelopment Commission has engaged in a couple studies, a partnership study with Elkhart County a couple years ago to look at how the roadway networks work. If you're in Elkhart County, you generally are coming west on what turns into Cleveland Road. If you're in St. Joe County, Douglas Road is the main corridor, east and west, basically 5 lanes from Mishawaka city limits all the way to Roseland. So at some point, as we look at this area, this has been kind of a traffic no man's land to some degree. We're making some improvements, a roundabout at Beach in Cleveland, a planned intersection improvement with a roundabout at Douglas and Bittersweet. So there are some basic improvements. Again, from a planning standpoint, the county has been working with City of Mishawaka to look at extension of a 5-lane roadway segment from Mishawaka city limits to Capitol Avenue. As part of that project, there would be an overpass. Right-of-way would be acquired for an overpass, whether or not the overpass gets built on day one or as part of future improvements in this area. So we are looking at traffic circulation through the corridor, have had conversations with NDOT about improving intersections and stacking lanes at a couple places in this corridor. The 2003 plan that was originally referenced, if you remember Capitol Avenue back in 2003, it was supposed to be a limited access highway from one end to the other. They actually had built one of the interchanges, I believe it was at Cleveland, and had started building an interchange at Douglas Road back in the day. That all was brought down to at-grade crossings, and so that changed some of the complexion, some of the scope of those intersections over time. But we think this is a great project. We are in the process, again, another study the Redevelopment Commission is doing is re-examining the 2003 Capitol Avenue corridor plan. We've got a consultant hired to be, that they've started a study, initial scoping study, much like we did in the IEC, really is trying to understand utility opportunities, land opportunities, zoning challenges and opportunities. So we think this is a good area for development in the county. Years ago, when Capitol Avenue was being developed, the H2 project came in, there was talk about development all the way through this corridor, industrial and commercial development in this corridor. Obviously, it never hit its mark, but we think there's a great opportunity, and this rezoning before you today, I think, starts to set the tone for that. So we think any development on the site, obviously, there's going to be a lot of opportunities to have input on how it relates to Jude Creek, how it relates to neighboring trail system and parks and green space and other development opportunities throughout this corridor. So we think it's a great opportunity. We think it's a great catalyst for some development in that corridor. The opportunity, though, first and foremost, to extend utilities in this area, we think is a real win for the area. So we ask for your support of this rezoning. If there's any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Thank you, Bill.
Yep.
Anybody else wishing to speak in favor of this petition, please come forward and state your name and address. Seeing none. Anybody online wishing to speak in favor of this petition, please use the raise hand feature. Looks like it just says Zoom user. Please state your name and address, and you have 5 minutes.
Zoom user, are you in favor or against this petition?
I'm against it.
Okay, right now we're just doing in favor.
I understand that. I raised my hand earlier. My apologies.
Anybody online wishing to speak in favor of this petition online? Seeing none.
We do have a comment in the chat. Are you able to see that?
Question. Can we bring that up now in the chat? Can we read that?
We can do that after we do public because first we'll do opposed in person, then we'll do opposed online, and then can address the comment.
So do the against. Okay, I'll come back to the chat. Seeing none other for in favor, I will now open it up to anybody wishing to speak against this petition. Please come forward and state your name and address, and you have 5 minutes.
Am I able to talk?
No, sorry, this is in person right now.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, good afternoon. Steve Francis, Jude Lake Drive, live up in Clay Township. I've spoken to you before as, in addition to having a graduate degree in economics, economic development and public policy from the University of Notre Dame, and having been 10 years a state chairperson of a major, well, the world's largest environmental and conservation organization, I'm speaking to you on that behalf, as well as I am a impacted landowner downstream from Juday Creek from this development, because I live on Juday Lake, which is connected to Juday Creek, about 3.5 miles downstream. So I hope you take these comments in stride as I speak to both the plans and this particular proposed rezoning. Rezoning ag land, I want to just make a pitch for agricultural land, number one, and then I'll move on. But ag land is not reversible. You're turning green fields into brown fields. In this case, an ag land designation to industrial zoning, and I really object to that because they're calling this a corporate business park, which sounds innocuous. However, under the current zoning, industrial zoning, they can do almost anything they want. I mean, certainly there are some restrictions, but in relation to the restrictions placed out west at the IEC near New Carlisle, where they have an additional overlay with additional restrictions, there's nothing in place here. So I make that point saying, why don't we move in a forward motion one by one rather than hastily doing the rezoning when we don't have the overlay in place? And that's what happened out there, caused divisiveness in the community, a lot of controversy, and eventually restrictions placed on by the St. Joe County Council. I want to speak to the Juday Creek issue. Yes, in fact, there is a Juday Creek task force. It's attached to the drainage board. It is an advisory committee. To my knowledge, it was not even consulted by the petitioner up to this point. The first time that we became aware of this rezoning was when it was introduced before the St. Joe County Council last week. So that is an advisory board to the drainage board, not a body that can make decisions on its own. Number two, Juday Creek is a very special 12-mile-long natural creek bed, which has been one of the most studied creeks in St. Joe County. It contains cold water stream for trout, as well as downstream, the Warren Golf Course, the Isaac Walton League flows into the St. Joe River. I do not want to have an industrial site upstream with possible accidents and drainage that could come down the creek and spoil that waterway. It's already been spoiled in many ways because the attempts by the Juday Creek Task Force have not been listened to. Occasionally they do, but there's not been that kind of reconstruction around it. You can deny this application, take some time. I would encourage a conservation easement of some kind with the petitioner. If they're truly not going to develop it south of Cleveland Road, then let's get that in place. Let's protect the creek bed, downstream residents, property owners who are going to be impacted by this, who haven't had the time to even hear about it before you make a decision. So I ask for deny the favorable recommendation. I don't know what your options are. You'll have to talk to your attorney, but I would suggest an unfavorable recommendation if the petitioner wants to carry it up to the council, and we'll continue to work on it at the council level. But I tried to contact the petitioner the last week. They did not return our calls. We can't talk to the petitioner. They have not tried to satisfy concerns of downstream residents. Yes, it was notified. I'm sure that the staff adequately provided for the law, but the plan you're using is 21 years old, 2003, hasn't been updated. And that plan, I would cite it to you, but I'm running out of time. That plan calls for significant protections around the wetlands area, Juday Creek, which aren't even protected now because of agricultural activity, but needs to be protected significantly if you're going to allow broad-based industrial activity. And you can't stop it if they decide to have a different owner who wants to do something different than what this pathetic site plan. This is a pathetic site plan. It doesn't give you any information. All that green area will turn brown. You do not have a specific site plan in place in order to make the decision today. So I ask for your denial. Thank you.
Anybody else wishing to speak against this petition? Please come forward, state your name and address, and you have 5 minutes.
Good afternoon, Dan Caruso, 305 Compton Street, New Carlisle. I come from that area where we've learned a lot of lessons. The community, the government has understood that we needed some input into what was coming into our community. It's been a frog march, but it's been worth it. We have an overlay in place which says exactly specific items which absolutely cannot be built in the area. There's no commitment to that here. You look at some of the things that are prohibited in our area: slaughterhouses, CAFOs, shredders, nuclear plants. I mean, all that stuff is, and in defense, not defense, but the farmers, the landowners over there already had a bunch of these in place. They had agreed that they would not sell to anybody who was doing any of these operations. Now that the farmers have been rolled into the overlay district, they were fine with those commitments that, yeah, we're not going to allow that type of operation in here. I mean a business tech campus. I see a bunch of students at Notre Dame sitting on the grass reading books. But say what it is. Right now it's a potential of smokestacks because there is nothing defined as to what can and can't come in there. They say, well, we don't think we're going to build south of Cleveland. Well, okay, I don't think I'm going to win the lottery, but you never know. You reduce it to writing. Get everything in writing. I do like the fact that they're looking at the transportation issues right now, rather than all of a sudden we got all this traffic and said, oh my God, what do we do with these cars? And then, they learned that lesson from over our way. But you have to, if you can just get some commitments on what they're going to allow into a business tech campus or a business park industrial. Just say what it is. To me, there's nothing campus about a steel warehouse. I wouldn't call any of the stuff that's coming in over by us a campus. To me, it's deceiving. Call it what it is, but I think it's, before you rezone this to industrial, let's get a group together, whether it be that Jude Creek regulatory group, somebody, put in writing that everybody agrees that this type of stuff won't be allowed in here. Go ahead with your road expansions, get ready for it, but table or just deny this petition at this point until it's okay to move forward, because right now you're just putting the cart before the horse. Thank you.
Thank you, Dan.
Charlotte Wolf, 21439 Osborne Road, Lakeville. And my comments are going to be some of the same that I made about the IEC project. And my comments are going to be the same that I'm going to make for pretty much any large conversions of agricultural land to industrial in our area. We in St. Joseph County are in the process of converting our best farmland, some of the best farmland in the country, in this case almost 1,000 acres of farmland and green space, and relabeling it to industrial. Like Dan said, we don't know what kind of industrial. This is contributing to continued sprawl. There is a total lack of comprehensive plan that is in any way current. We are following, I think, a 2002 plan, and this project is in direct opposition to what does exist in 2002. There, again, has been explained the lack of any protections, as in the IEC overlay, and limitations to what type of industry could come in. Furthermore, this beautiful property impacts on Judy Creek, its floodplain, and its associated poorly drained soils. We do have a need in our community for higher density, medium income housing for our residents. This project does not address that need. This property might be, if creatively developed, a beautiful property to live on. This lack of infrastructure. Who is going to pay for the infrastructure? Do we have any agreements up front? Once again, taxpayers get stuck with the cost of the project. And that has been a huge issue with the IEC. Why is the county getting into land purchases and helping infrastructure for these industries? Why are we paying them, giving them abatements? Why are we bribing developers to come and ruin our county? So again, this is the opposite of responsible development and growth. We should be growing up and not out. And that's the more progressive way to do things. We're in the backwaters here. I feel like Indiana overall is in the backwaters, but we are in South Bend. We're supposed to be one of the best counties in the state. And if we can't show progressive planning ideas, what about the rest of the state? So just to give you an example, my daughter lives in Japan right now. 80% of their land area is rural. Now, granted, they have a lot of mountains in Japan, but only 20% of their land is taken up with urban development. So they're the experts in limiting sprawl. And if you look at a map of Tokyo, it is dense. They go up, not out. Why are we not looking at these land use planning outcomes as our goal? We're continuing to decrease our county's quality of life, our agricultural values, our scenic values, etc. Why do we not value these assets that we have here that will provide attractive and safe living areas and attract people to live here, as opposed to continuing to degrade air, water, soil with industrial sprawl? I happen to have a small farm myself, and I appreciate the value of ag land. And then I'll just close with a little bit about, I'm a wetland scientist by training, and I also value wetlands. A great use for this property. Detention ponds cost so much more, and they only hold water short periods and release it in quantity. Wetlands are natural sponges for water, and they release the water slowly, thus improving the water quality. So a conservation development, if any of you know what that means, is a development that is particularly designed to capture all the natural elements of the land, to look at the soils, look at where the water flows, restore some of the ecological values, and have those working for you instead of having to, at great expense, install infrastructure like detention ponds that is going to release water quickly.
Charlotte, you have 30 seconds.
Okay, so I just wanted to close that wetlands are much more effective at holding water, and that would be a wonderful use for this property. But we've not seen any kind of plans like that. There's no plans at all. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else wishing to speak against this petition, please come forward and state your name and address. You have 5 minutes.
Thank you. Charles Whetstone, 13753 Woods Trail in Granger. I'm the president of our homeowners association, and we are the first subdivision just to the north of this rezoning proposal. It's been said that the industrial development should not impact the residential property values, but you know, even if there is good regulation, if there's not oversight and good enforcement, things happen, accidents happen, leakage happens. We've seen property values really decline in areas where there's been spillages and leakages and chemical and industrial waste. And all of the subdivisions north of the toll road right there we're all on well and septic systems. And we really love our water. It's good water, and we'd like to keep it that way. But you know, the fact that something could happen to destroy that system for us and poison our water is a concern for us. The traffic has been mentioned, and it is an issue that we are concerned about. I was surprised in some way to see that Cleveland has an average of 12,000 cars there a day. But during rush hour, I don't go to Cleveland just because it gets backed up really, really easily just from the light at Capitol and Cleveland in both directions. There's one a part that talks about truck and automobile traffic generated by employment uses should not travel through residential areas. But even though Current Road has been mentioned a couple times, we've seen a lot of traffic on Current Road. There's a ballpark on Current Road just north of the toll road. Kids are there with their families from May, first week of May, clear through toward the end of the fall. And they're there Monday, they have games Monday through Thursday, and then on the weekends. And the speed limit there is only 25 miles an hour, but people fly going from 23 to Cleveland and from Cleveland to 23. And the people coming off of Cleveland are just got done doing 55 miles an hour. And then when they get on the north onto Current, it's 45. But as soon as you go over the tracks, it's to 25 miles an hour. And people are not respecting that now. And we're really concerned that this new development is really going to increase that traffic and not diminish it. So for these reasons, I don't know that we can say we have enough information to say we're completely against this project or not, but we do have these concerns. And we would hope that the Planning Commission would take them into consideration. Thank you.
Sir, what was your name again? I'm sorry.
Charles Whetstone?
Thank you.
Anybody else?
Hi, Barb Hiss, 12193 Covered Wagon Court, Granger, Indiana, which is right up in that little corner. I'm just east of the top part of Prairie Lane. And I have more questions than I have so much of for or against, which makes me against it because we just don't know enough. We don't know who actually is going to be paying for this infrastructure being done. Will it be a tax burden? Our taxes are already very high. Will Cleveland and Douglas become 4 lanes? You know, yet we can put the passing lanes in there, but I tell you what, even with those at 8:30 in the morning or at 5:30 at night, it's not going to help. It's not going to help. That traffic is backed up completely. If it's annexed into Mishawaka, which eventually it will be, all that tax revenue would not be in Harris Township anymore, I'm assuming. I don't know that question, if it would go all to Mishawaka, or would Harris Township actually get some benefit from all of this industrial? The thing that really concerns me the most is the most likely use, because we don't know. And with this blanket industrial, we don't know what's going to be in there. Is it going to cause noise? Is it going to cause odors? Is it going to cause something that we don't know about? And I've been a residential appraiser for over 30 years, and I can tell you that if some of those things happen, it will affect ours. We already have to deal with the toll road, and we know that. We chose to live there because of the very limited amount of land that we can have in this area for residential, especially when I've lived there over 27 years. So we're almost out of residential land in Harris Township, and so it's just really scary to me, not knowing exactly what's going in there. And the definition of business tech, does that mean that there's going to be loading docks? Do we know if there's going to be loading docks? Do we know if they're going to be loading and unloading at all times of the night? We don't know any of that, and that's what concerns me the most, and that will affect the value of my house. No ifs and or buts about it. It will if we don't have more answers to that. So I'm curious of how they actually determined that it would not affect the residential properties. Yes, the toll road does separate us, but I can see the solar fields from my house. So it will affect somewhat, at least. So those are just my questions and my concerns. It just basically just tells me that we just don't know enough, and that it is very concerning to just do all of this land and not really have a better plan for it, and have who's going to do the infrastructure, who's going to do the water and sewer. And if water and sewer is brought in, why can't it be residential? It's already prone to very flooding, a lot of flooding, especially along Bittersweet. And that's what worries me too, is that the trucks are going to find out they don't have to cross the railroad tracks on Douglas. So are they going to go from Cleveland to Bittersweet and clog up Bittersweet as well? So those are all concerns of mine. Again, not necessarily a for or against, just don't have any answers at this point. Thank you.
Anybody else, please come forward, state your name and address.
Hello, I'm Mike Emmert. I live on Anderson Road, 13300 Anderson. So I see the traffic out there. And Anderson Road itself is 30 miles an hour. There's people going 60 down that road. They fly over the railroad tracks and everything else now. Current road, people don't abide by the laws there either. It's the same thing. I worry about the traffic. These people have already talked about all the other things I've thought about, so I'm not going to go into that sort of thing. In fact, they're probably more versed on it than I am. But I'm witnessing what's going on out there. We need, if we're going to do stuff like that, we need to patrol it. We need to patrol all the speed limits. We need to patrol the codes. We need to be more concerned about the environment. I'm worried because I live just north of the ballpark. So, hey, I can hear those kids playing ball over there. That's not bad. The toll road, I can hear the toll road traffic. I'm okay with it. I live next to the railroad tracks. I've gotten used to that. But if there's going to be a bunch of industrial noise or pollution of any kind, noise pollution, light pollution, air pollution, anything, I'm concerned about it. I'm with them. I think we need to know more about this before we make a decision. I wish they'd be more transparent as to what they're doing there, what's their intention. So, in a nutshell, that's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mike. Anybody else wishing to speak against this petition? Seeing none. Is there anybody online? Shelley, could you pull up the screen for me? I can't see the. Thank you. Looks like we have the Zoom user. Could you please state your name and address? You have 5 minutes.
Yes, Jason A. Felty, 53532 Bittersweet Road. I guess I should be the most concerned because I live about 2 feet from Judy Creek. That is a huge concern, which everybody else has stated. Traffic is a huge concern for my wife and myself and my grandchildren. I grew up in Prairie Lane Estates north of your proposed site. I've been there for 40 years. 9 years ago, I bought this property on Bittersweet Road, which is directly south of your proposed site. I'm concerned about my well, like everybody else. Population, the pollution to the soils, the traffic on Bittersweet Road, which everybody else said. The roundabout that should have been at Douglas Road a long time ago. We bought this property for an investment, for retirement. And what's it going to do to, we don't have no answers. I mean, what's it going to do to the value of our home? My $1 million home is now going to be worth $200,000, $300,000 because I'm within 500 feet of an industrial plant. My house is 480 feet off Bittersweet Road. I can count on my surveillance cameras at least 10 cars a day that pull into my driveway, come up to my door, back up, and go back out my property because of the traffic that is on Bittersweet Road at 4 o'clock. Somebody has stated it's backed up from Cleveland Road all the way to Day Road, and it's almost impossible to travel to come home. There's a lot I'm concerned about, which I really wish I could have met at the meeting today, but other obligations, me being a business owner, came up. I wish I could be there, but I bought this residence for green. to stay green, to enjoy the wildlife that's out here. And like somebody else stated, now it's going to be brown. It's going to be garbage. The air pollution, we want more answers. We need to know, I need to know what's going within 500 feet, 800 feet of my home, of my property that I purchased. So I would like to deny it, and I would like to know more. I mean, I travel this road 5 times a day, taking my grandkids to school, taking my kids, going to my office. The traffic's crazy. And this was just brought to my attention a week ago, and they're already building. They're already got plans doing stuff out there, which is already causing chaotic. Traffic can't get by. They're already causing confusion in the traffic pattern there with what they're doing now. What's going to be when there is an industrial plant there? So I would like to state that I deny it, and I would like to know more details of what is going there and what is going to guarantee that my property value does not go down because I am 2 foot from Judy Creek. And when I mean 2 foot, I am 2 foot from Judy Creek. And that is a beautiful thing, and I want to keep it beautiful. So with that said, I rest everything I say, and hopefully they respect our decision to deny it, or at least let us know what is going on there. Thank you.
Thank you, Jason. Looks like we have about 9 minutes. Do we want to keep going, or
there's anybody else on Zoom.
one more? Is there anybody else on Zoom wishing to speak against this petition? Please use. We have Richard. Is there anybody? How many do we have? Can you scroll down, Shelley? All right, could you scroll down, Shelley? I want to see how many we got.
Right now, it's just Richard that has his.
Okay, Richard, go ahead. Please state your name and address, and you have 5 minutes. Richard, you can unmute yourself.
He did put a comment in the chat. I can read that if you
Okay,
want
go
me
ahead.
to.
Yeah.
His comment in the chat was, what is being planned for the St. Joe Farm buildings?
Okay, we have a couple other comments in the chat. What else do we have in there?
We have Lon Zemerl, address at 30351 County Road 12 in Elkhart. He's representing ownership of 239 acres south of Cleveland and east of Buckeye. Will water and sewer extensions be made with a capacity that could allow future water and sewer service extended to other nearby properties?
Okay.
And then additionally, from Richard's iPad, a Mary Samuels located at 17733 Judy Lake Drive. I lived on the creek for 20 years and inside South Bend for 70 years. I hate the sprawl around Grape Road. We need homes, not more industry. Industry can cause pollution, chemical spills, and is ugly to look at. We have never felt safe drinking our well water because of the dump site from the Uniroyal site leaking into the creek. What would more industry do to the groundwater? And then we have a Mr. Ron Frimpkin. If this is truly a tech campus, it doesn't need to be zoned industrial, against industrial zoning, and he provided his address at 52177 Woodhaven in Granger.
Thank you, Shelley. Do we want to, is there anybody else on Zoom that wanted to speak against this?
Jeff, excuse me, Jeff Leininger. Can you hear me okay?
We can take one more.
We'll take one more, yes. Go ahead, Jeff.
Jeff Leininger, 12039 Douglas Road, lifelong resident, area, area farm.
Wrong person.
Oh, hang on.
Sorry,
Jeff.
Mr. Leininger, please unmute yourself again.
You got muted, Jeff. If you want to,
Okay.
there you go. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, I would just add, I think this is a really poorly thought out development plan. You know, I appreciate the enthusiasm for bringing city sewer and water into the area. You know, we can all agree that that would be, you know, beneficial to the Granger residents. But I guess, you know, I'm speaking more on some other concerns that I have relative to the farmland. And interestingly enough is the noted silence of the St. Joseph County Farm Preservation Working Group, headed by the Executive Director of Area Plan Commission and accompanied, you know, by a number of probably highly compensated consultants. I've served on this working group, listened to the emotional testimony of farm preservation while trying to bring a scientific approach to building best land use recommendations built on soil types, percolation, permeability, and other fundamental soil science principles. Again, silence is noted from this working group and recommendations are unconsidered towards this project at this time. Also silent are former area plan members that recently promoted preserving the agricultural heritage of Harris Township, which in our estimation is about 40 to 50 years too late. Despite the excitement of bringing a data management center to cornfields of Indiana, I think one must carefully consider the growing demand to feed a growing world population with a shrinking land base. And I think when you look at the growing food-dependent world population with the smallest land base than ever before in the history of the U.S., it gives reason to concern for projects like this, where the green space is turned into brown space, and in most times irreversible brown space. I encourage you to reach out to Indiana Department of Agriculture is set to soon release an alarming research study showing the erosion of highly productive farmland to other uses across Indiana. We acknowledge the increased tax-based revenue changes, arrival of city sewer and water, but you know, at this point, I think more thought and consideration needs to be put into this plan. We don't need another 300-acre solar farm that, you know, serves as maybe the greatest eyesore of St. Joseph County due to its inability to be maintained properly. So I think before we start throwing, you know, industrial taglines on some of these businesses, it's important to know who's coming in and what the parameters are of this development. Thank you.
Thank you, Jeff.
Okay, we're going to have the chairperson call a recess, and we're going to have to move the meeting up to the 7th floor commissioners' room in order to continue. I don't.
To do the Zoom.
We will, if you are on Zoom, you are going to need to sign in again because you're going to get kicked out because we have to close the meeting and then reopen it upstairs. It will be the same login information that you used to get in now. You'll want to wait a few minutes and then try it again.
So we are going to do a short recess and reconvene on the 7th floor.
Yes. What time do you anticipate the reconvening? 5? 4:55?
4:55, 10 minutes.
I think that sounds
We'll
sufficient.
reconvene 4:55 up in the 7th floor.